Hi, thank you for being here tonight. My name is David Dustin. I'm the principal of Conant High School, and tonight we're presenting on specific Conant High School general information, and we will be answering any audience questions that may come up tonight as well. So thank you for being here, and folks at home, we will send this recording and we appreciate you watching as well. So we're going to go around and do some other quick introductions before we get started.
Yeah, so I'm Kim Baker, Director of Counseling for the Middle High School.
I'm Anne-Marie Oshiak, now the Assistant Principal of Teaching and Learning for the Middle High School.
And we will be joined by Rachel Summy-Leonard, who is the Assistant Principal of Safety and Culture. So just for anybody who is new to the high school experience with their learners, there are some changes that you should expect to see in your child as they transition into 9th grade in particular. Some of these mirror the transition you probably started to see in middle school as well. You'll notice some friend group changes. That's completely normal and to be expected. High school, of course, is when kids are going from kids to adults, and sometimes the people they interact and jive with just adjust as they get a little older. You'll notice some interests shifting. This is more prevalent in the middle school, but certainly as high school goes on, we see some learners picking up entire new interests that they may never have done before. Sometimes we'll see behavior patterns once again shift. Usually this is in a reduction of the types of behaviors we might see in middle school, but again, that pattern can kind of ebb and flow. Sometimes academics change. Some learners who maybe didn't always achieve the way that we feel they're capable in middle school will start to do so in high school. Sometimes it's other adjustments. Definitely expect the continuation of the slowdown of information to come home from your child. They're probably not going to open up and talk about their day as freely as they did in elementary school or middle school. This is something that often catches first-time high school parents by surprise. It is completely normal for teenagers to be a little self-centered around their own world, to kind of think about their own interests. They start to develop some rebellious tendencies as they become adults, and this includes from their parents sometimes. Sometimes that barrier will go up around you as well from them. This makes communication with us and with your teachers here at school all the more important, especially if there's things we need to work together to address. And even though oftentimes we see a big decline in parent-guardian participation, in some ways high school is the most important time for us to stay involved together. This is the time when the decisions your child starts to make start to become more permanent and defining of their future pathways. We have to work together to make that successful. Lots of resources. This is just a very brief kind of overview of how you can get the best and quickest answers for concerns or questions about your child's progress. Teachers are always the folks we would recommend going to first. They can answer quick questions and concerns you might have about learning. They can be in the best position to support more information if there's incidents in the class or behaviors that might pop up, questions you might have about the actual classwork and assessments taking place, and certainly grade questions. We always recommend teachers first. If you were to go to administration for those things first, oftentimes we have to then circle back to the teacher and try to gather up that information anyways, and we would probably ask you to go there first in that case. School counseling is a great resource. If you don't know who else to contact, the school counselor could be a great starting place. But certainly if you're seeing a pattern of concern that crosses over many subject areas, if you're concerned that we may be missing something to support your child, if you have things you want to share, social concerns, peer group concerns, they're a great resource to help facilitate some of those types of needs or adjustments. And we're a great resource to the school administrators if you're seeing behavior things popping up and you really just want some extra support. If you have concerns about safety things taking place and you want us to quickly have that information, suggestions or ideas about how to improve the school, those things are critical to us to make the school a better place, and any ongoing or lingering concerns. And certainly if you've attempted to address things at an earlier place and you're not getting answers that feel right, speedy, effective, let us know right away and we can also jump on supporting that. Ways we communicate at the high school level. Email is the biggest one. I don't love email. I'm sure everybody in attendance and here has inboxes that get pretty quickly full. I totally understand that. But as the most effective way of communicating with 700 or so students and all of their parents and guardians, the best way to do that is email. We've tried all sorts of other methods, and some of them are listed here, but that's the most surefire one that gets everybody typically on the first go. Our emails will almost always come from our student information system called ALMA. So you'll see a heading that says Conant Middle High School. If you don't get those emails, or if you're hearing that there's information going out that you didn't receive, Check your spam folder. You may have to mark those emails as safe because they do come, again, from a batch email system, or always reach out and we can check on your email address in our systems as well. But email is really, really important for getting information from the school. We keep our website up to date. We worked this summer to make the tabs more user-friendly and added some more information there. We'll continue to keep that website going and keep it up to date. We send a monthly newsletter called the Conant Connection that has a blend of school news, learner information, and sort of shouting out to positive things that kids are doing. That will go out every month. Every week, we send out a weekly newsletter with just highlights of things for that week. That one often has job opportunities for high school learners because oftentimes they're looking for part-time jobs. It has college information, different, learning experiences, all sorts of stuff that can be really good for learners. Most of our grade levels in the middle school and some of our content areas in the high school continue to send newsletters. And then, of course, our student information system and learning management system, Alma and Otis, are great resources where stuff will come out as well. So we try to have lots of layers to catch as many people as possible. But again, email is the one that's the most consistent, and we definitely would encourage you to kind of keep an eye on that for things that might come from the school. Typically, anything that is sent to everybody through email also gets put on our social media pages and our website as well. Normal high school day, no major adjustments from our schedule for last year for families that are returning, with one minor exception, which I'll talk about in a moment. Our start time is still 7:25. We ask learners not to arrive before 7:10 because the building is not staffed until that time, so the doors do remain locked until 7:10. We give about a 10-minute window of time where people can come into the building, get breakfast, get settled in, and then from 7:20 to 7:25 is kind of the move to class with the expectation that everyone's in class by that 7:25 bell. Most of our high school classes operate on blocks, which is 88 minutes of time. Some of them, particularly for 9th graders, operate on what's called a skinny, which is one single period. That's true for algebra. We believe that longer instruction over a period of time for that foundational math is really critical. So that operates as a block, a period all year. And then some other freshman classes to supplement that transition, like freshman foundations, those also operate on a 42-minute period. Our passing time is not long, but we're a small school, so it typically works really well to only have that 2 to 3 minute time frame. In between every block is a 3-minute passing. If it's in between a period, that's 2 minutes. Lunch is 25 minutes, and then we have a mentoring period, which is 20 minutes long, and this is the only change from last year. We've added a few minutes to that with the idea that this can be used to help support learners who might need to finish an assessment, go see a teacher, things like that. And our day for the high school ends at 2:12. We have 5 community expectations that all of our other sort of rules and expectations stem from. The number 1 is always safe. In the high school, safety is the most important piece. We can't have learning if people don't feel safe. So this would include expectations around keeping the physical building safe, maintaining safe kind of communications, things like that. Respectful is a really big one in our building. Again, just maintaining a place that's focused on learning. Being responsible and growing that independence over time is a critical piece. We expect our community members to be growth-oriented. You'll notice policies and procedures in place that encourage reassessment, retrying, learning, and doing things again. That's part of that growth-oriented piece of our community, and collaborative. These all kind of mirror what workplaces tend to expect as well. In most workplaces, you can't walk in and start blowing swears out at everybody around you. That's not respectful, and most workplaces wouldn't tolerate that. Collaboration is a critical skill. So these also mirror themselves to things that employers tell schools we really need our future employees to have down. Just a note, this is not really a community expectation in the sense of the bigger umbrella, but it is a school-wide expectation that we do not permit cell phones in our classrooms. And that's a hard and fast rule that we do not deviate from. We have found that they cause major issues. They disrupt basically every one of these things when they're out and about. Social media creates huge issues in our school, so we just don't permit them in our classrooms. If there's ever an emergency and a parent needs to reach their child, our main office can quickly get any of our school classrooms with our classroom phones. We have ways of very quickly finding learners for you, but we don't permit cell phones. So, Anne-Marie?
My turn? My turn.
I think we're co-discussing this one.
Are we co-discussing this one? Okay.
So just a quick overview of teaching and learning. High school looks like middle school in some ways, not so much in other ways. Everybody has core academic classes, some things in English, social studies, math, and science. Electives that fall under that unified arts umbrella, art classes. We have tons of art opportunities in the high school, music, ensemble music, world language, career classes that we offer and manage with Conval sort of in unison. And everybody takes part in our mentoring and support opportunities when those are needed. Grade 9, we just focused on here because this tends to be the learners who have not really seen their schedules before and have the most questions. Everybody has English all 4 years. Freshmen have a writing workshop. We've had a lot of data that suggests that writing is a critical need everywhere that is not being well mastered by the time learners leave high school. So in the 6th and 9th grade levels, we have added a specific writing class that is in addition to the English language arts instruction to really build out professional, in the high school level, professional writing skills and help build a foundation for the future. Freshman Foundations is a transition class for freshmen. It includes some career sort of inventorying, taking surveys, looking at opportunities for different types of learning experiences, as well as working on executive functioning. How can I better organize myself in high school where the expectations are greater? How can I partner with school counseling, things like that. Every learner in 9th grade either has Algebra 1 or Geometry. If learners have accelerated in math and already taken those, then they would move to either Algebra 2 or something beyond that. But most learners are in one of those 2 classes. Everybody takes World History in 9th grade, typically Physical Education and a World Language, and then this is rounded out with art electives or other things for usually just a small portion of the day. So 9th grade is the tightest controlled schedule. Each year there's more and more openings for learners to make choice. Our instructional design starts with a learning goal, and you'll start to hear once Anne-Marie starts talking a little bit more about that. That is our starting place for every one of our classes and every unit of instruction. What do we want learners to develop for skills? What do we want them to know? Those are the 2 things we kind of look at. And then within each of those areas for our learning goal, what are the practice tasks and what are the assessments that we make sure learners are getting those pieces down? And again, we'll dig into that a little more. Our grades, very quickly, center around the learning goal. Some of the stuff we do is formative, which is practice. We don't count that for the grade. We give that as an opportunity for feedback, always connected to the learning goal. And we have summative tasks, which Anne-Marie will talk about a little bit more. Those are the pieces that actually are at the end of instruction and count for the grade. Work habits are another piece that's a continuation from middle school. We've identified as a district 4 critical areas of soft skills that are just as important as academic skills, and in some cases more important than academic skills for success after high school. They fall into the categories of independent learning, meeting deadlines, participation, and using success criteria. This matrix is available inside of our program of studies, as well as on our report cards. You can see what the breakdown looks like there. These are assessed separately in each of our classes, so that parents and learners get lots of feedback and can kind of know how their child's progressing in these areas as well. And lastly, for you, Anne-Marie, our goal in all of the middle high school is to move over time and within each unit of study, but as a big picture as well, from an area where the teacher is instructing and doing the work of pulling information to share, gradually moving into where the teacher is just doing more of the practice feedback zone.
Sorry.
Whoops. And providing additional instruction, but the goal is always independence of learning. As we move through, that's how we measure learning. That's what we're shooting for with our learning goals. That's what we hope to see by the time learners leave here in 12th grade. As adults, we are constantly faced with situations where we're given a task and we may or may not have all the pieces to complete that task, but successful adults know where they can look for the information, who they can ask questions of, how they can get what they need. When we say independence, that's kind of what we're looking for in that big picture. That all of our learners have enough tools to know what they don't know, to find the information to fill in those gaps with what they don't know, and to succeed in whatever tasks they might face.
Me. Have I not had a child of anyone here? Like, has anyone not had Mrs. Oshiak? I know. Yeah. Everyone's had. Who are your kiddos?
Gary and Joey Eaton.
I don't know if I've actually had them yet. So maybe. Welcome. Hi, I'm Mrs. Oshiak. Yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah. So, anyone here, you're new to the district? You have no idea how this works. Okay, fantastic. Do your kids go home and talk to you about how they're doing in school? Yeah, great. So super, right. Yeah, how was your day? Boring. What did you do? Nothing. Favorite period? Lunch. Yeah. Okay. So when we talk about grading and learning at the high school, we switched over a while ago from traditional grading, which is when you would get a report card and you would see next to all the subjects, like your kid's getting a B+. But if I said to you, your kid got a B+ in math, tell me what they're good at and what they're stuck at. How many of you could go, I know? Oh, that's so weird. Like, I see a shrug. What about you out there? Probably don't know either. Right, okay. So we switched over to what's called standards-based grading, which means that we no longer just, it's the same thing as if you brought your car into the shop, right? And we said, great, your car, you brought it in for an inspection, your car got a B+. You would walk out and go, well, what was good? What needs fixing? It's not an A. Why isn't it an A? Right? And so it's the same thing for our students, right? We want them to know, and we want parents and guardians and caregivers to know exactly what your student knows and can do and what they can't, right? Because how can they learn if they don't know what they can do? How do you know where the gaps are, where you can help them or where to seek support for them? So this is what we do. We give kids a learning goal, right? In public speaking, it might be something like uses physical presence, right, appropriately, right? And so there are maybe 10 goals in public speaking. One is about your physical presence. One might be about modulating your tone of voice. One might be about the visuals you use, right? And over the course of public speaking, we're assessing kids, right? And kids know I am really good with my voice. Like if Ms. Oshiak needs me to modulate my voice, it is great. I can give any kind of speech and adapt my voice. But when it comes to presentations, I never have visuals, right? I either don't use visuals or the visuals have these crazy effects that give people like headaches, like I'm not good at presentations, right? And so that's what we do with all of our learning goals. They all have, every course has a set of like 8 to 10 learning goals, right? And so by the time you get a report card or when you're looking in Otis at the grade book, this is what it's telling you. Where is your learner falling on those goals? Where are they doing well? Where are they working towards something? Where is something not going so well and they might need a little extra support? Does that make sense? Cool, thanks. Right, so we do 1 to 4, right? 3 is where they're nailing something independently and consistently. So they can do it by themselves, they can do it without help like 95% of the time, right? They get it and they can do it and they understand it, right? A 4 is like they've done something super creative with it. Does anyone bake here? Do y'all bake? Maybe. Okay. So it's like if I could make a cake, right? Like a 3 would be like, I need you to make a cake, right? And you can pull out the ingredients and you can bake a cake. The level 4 bakers, of which I am not one of them, okay, they have like fondant, like you know when you look at those Pinterest birthday parties and they've made their kid like the Mickey Mouse cake or the Nemo, and you're like, oh, that has like 3 layers, special frosting, and like you made shapes, right? I am the Pinterest fail one, so I'm at a 3. I can make a cake, but if you want fancy, like you don't call me to make your kid's birthday cake, right? It's the same thing. A student has taken that skill and they've what I call zhuzhed it, right? They are able to do something with fondant, right? Or like they can look at this and say, oh, you know what, Ms. Oshek, like actually I was in science the other day and I did this same thing, but I used it over here. And I'm like, you transferred that skill into another class? Holy crap, like that's a level 4. You were able to take that and bring it into another class and apply it in a new way. Holy cow. Or like you were able to sit down with a kid and explain it in a totally different way, or you made a music video about that? Oh, okay, that's cool, that's a 4. Okay, so that's how we score our approval. Questions? Rachel's like, no, this isn't going right.
Well,
Kim, you're like, nah, maybe.
I have a question as far as in regards to how great, like this grading system, like when it comes to colleges and stacking up against like other kids that use like the traditional grading system, because then GPAs are different.
So we actually did a panel with some college admission reps last spring about this topic, and they were, which we've heard from them, but we wanted them to be able to speak to the community about it. And their feedback was that colleges don't really care what a grading system looks like, because no matter what is sent, they unwind it and turn it into their own system anyways. So they gave an example, and one admissions rep, I think it might have been the one from SNU or URI, I don't remember, but they said, we actually get some high school transcripts that are completely narrative. There's no grades, there's no indicator of skill, it's just a paragraph for each class. And we're able to unwind that because the school sends along more information, and we're able to turn that into this scoring mechanism that compares to this student over here and this student over here. They said it really doesn't matter as long as the school is consistent with its own students and provides information to the college about what that means. So they said that they see this, they see 0 to 100, they see A through F, they see boxes of narratives, they see portfolios that are just like, here's all the work my child did, the student did over 4 years, and they can accept any of it, unwind it, and turn it into their own system before they make a decision.
Can I just jump in for a second too? Because I think it's important
Great
that
question.
we also acknowledge that all colleges have a representative that works specifically with our school. And usually those representatives are with us for many years, so they get to know our learners, they get to know our demographics, they get to know our expectations for our learners. And we're in constant conversation with them. They're here meeting with our learners, they're in our buildings, they come to our fairs. So they know, and when they have questions, they'll call, we'll provide clarity. But I think the message was they're definitely not at a disadvantage. It's our job for them to kind of unwind it for them and a little bit and let them know what this means. And so that's what we call the school profile that goes along with every transcript that goes to a college or university.
We're also not the first school or the only school that does standards-based grading.
Yeah.
Like, there are lots of schools that have been doing it well before us, so it wouldn't be the first time like a college has seen it.
Yeah.
It's a really great question though, and it's one that we spent a lot of time, before we even started this journey in our grading system a few years ago, it's one that we probed really extensively, because the last thing that we want is for our learners to not get into college and to not have success with whatever comes next. So I really appreciate you asking
And
that.
maybe we could repost that video.
Yeah,
and,
that's a great idea.
For people to be able to watch and see.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you. So, good news, Otis changed their gradebook. Did everybody use Otis last year? Did you log in? You can be honest. If you're like, no, it's okay. Kim's like, every 5 minutes.
I had my
Like,
kid pull it up and I was like, still don't understand it.
right. So the people at Otis realized that, and they revamped their gradebook, both for the students and the families, so that it wasn't like kind of a page splash of things, and you're like, what button do I hit? I just want to know how my kid is doing, right? So when you log in to Otis this year, you have a little drop-down menu, right? So if you have multiple kids, I think you said you have 2, right? You can pick whichever kiddo you want to look at. And the first thing you're going to see is their classes. Ignore this because we don't do points. And you're going to see this, right?
And that column won't even be there, the points column.
The points column, okay. So, thank you. You're only going to see sort of like an overview of like, how are they doing in ELA? Okay, so far they're meeting standards overall. Ooh, they're approaching, so like maybe want to look at what's going on in there. Wow, they're nailing it in science, right? So you'll get a broad overview. And then if you click on a class, yep. So you're going to see that the screen is split up. You have 2 options of how you can look at how your learner is doing. One is strictly by the assessments. So if I click on English, I can see all of the assessments that the teacher gave. And I can see when the teacher gave them, if they were submitted and when, if it was on time or late, and then if it was graded and any comments that were left. So you get to see that. And then you can also click on standards. Go ahead, next. Yep. And it will look a little bit different than this. It will give you a same list of the standards that your child is working on and how many times they've attempted that standard. So when you click on that, it brings up this little graph that usually freaks people out. And sometimes the kids too, they're like, what is this? And I'm like, all this is showing you is how you're doing on that standard, right? So if it was, right, I can adapt my voice for various speakers and audiences and purposes. Well, we've worked on that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it goes from like least recent to most recent, and so you can see how is my child doing. And sometimes there's a dip because this was easy and then we did something a little harder, right? So you can actually even click into these and it will tell you what the assignment was, right? So this is often where I'm showing learners, because they'll say, Ms. Ochiak, why do I have like a 2? And I'm like, let's go back and look. Oh, you dipped here, let's go look at this. What do you need to fix? Right? Or I'll say, oh, I can go back and fix that grade because these next 2 things showed me that you got it. So I'll go adjust that for you. Right? Does that make sense? So you now get to see that, and you can either pick to look at the standards and how they're doing, or you can just look at the assessments. Good so far? So it doesn't look like word vomit anymore.
On the assessments page, does it show what's coming due as well?
That's a good question. On the
'Cause that's
Can
one
you click
of the
that?
things
Yeah,
we
can
have
you
in
go
our
back,
kids
please?
is
Yes.
keeping them on track.
Yeah. That's a really good question. I'll test it this fall. I'll see if I can get one of the teachers. I'll be like, put something in there, and then I'll see if we can see it. I also think you will have, you'll be able to look at that. Like your home page is now going to be this, and then I think there'll be a different place where you can see what's up and coming.
It's like a
But-
to-do list.
Yeah. The homepage used to be the to-do list, and parents went, oh my god, too much, like this is, I just want to know how they're doing, so they switched it so that you see this. I will ask tonight, and I will see if I can have an answer for you in a couple of days. Will that work?
Yeah.
They're pretty good about responding to me.
Perfect.
Yeah, so if I understand your question, you want to know, can I look at this and see what's up and coming?
Yeah, and if it's not there, where?
Yep.
Because like I said, our kids, we usually find out, it's like, why is your grade bad? Well, this time it was due 2 months ago. I'm like,
You're like,
and we were trying to, like, I didn't, when we look at it, on their page, like, it looks fine, but we didn't really know what we're looking at.
Ah.
And to find out, a litany of assignments have gone by, and you're like,
I do know anything that the teacher has put in as an assessment and started grading will
You'll
show
see
up
here.
here. So if there is an assignment where the due date is come and gone, it'll automatically show up here because the teacher will have already started putting those grades in.
or if
So
they're
that'd be-
working on it, it'll
That'd
be
be a
here.
great time when you'd see the no submission and late, and then it's like, oh, okay. Your question about upcoming is really good too, because it obviously is better to not even get to the place where they missed the due date, and I know a lot of parents like to be able to kind of
Yeah.
prompt their child. So I believe we're gonna double check it, but I believe that any assessment that the teacher has assigned and put in will show up on the assessment list.
Mhm.
And if the upcoming ones don't for some reason, we will send everybody kind of a screenshot of what that would look like.
Yep, because I can tell you sometimes they might not show up because I don't want a kid getting access to it before we've done something. And I had some kids last year where I was like, why did you turn this in? We haven't even gone over the lesson. They're like, I don't know, I saw it. And I was like, but you didn't even, they're like, I didn't know what I was doing. And so I would stop, post it, I would be like, fine, you don't have access to this until 1 p.m. because I'm teaching it at 12:30, right? So you wouldn't have seen it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah, I
think
can
that's
accept.
reasonable, like, I don't wanna know what the kid's gotta do in 4 months' time if you
Right.
haven't even taught it yet, but
Yeah.
like.
You wanna know, this has been assigned to you.
I want to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so that should be here, so that you can see like, oh, this is today's, the 10th, but this is due on the 14th, right? And so far, there hasn't been a submission, so then this is due in 4 days, what are you?
Show me what you've been working on with
yeah.
that.
Yeah. And kids love to play this game, just so you know, because even my honor students did this. I would call parents and say, so-and-so is missing their draft of their paper, and they would say, oh, and I would say, so it says, right, that it's missing, and the kid says to a parent, oh, I turned that in, and they haven't done anything with it. So if you're hearing that a lot from your learner, please email the teacher, because that is when we start to go, oh, no, that's not true at all.
Yeah,
But
there's
that they
that
love the,
self-protective bubble again, right?
yes. So a lot of times they'll say, why do you have all these missing assignments? And the parent will tell me, oh, my son said they turned them in. I'm like, no, they didn't turn in any of those, right? And that's a nice little gap that so we can close that gap for you. Yeah. And yeah. And so this is if you've gotten a report card, oh, Rachel, yeah, go.
Where it had the assessments, it doesn't say which standard that goes to on that page.
Usually it does. So
This one right here.
Once you've clicked into it, it would show you what standard that's attached. This is just an assessment list, really for the purpose of exactly what the Beatons were saying over here with kind of keeping track of when things are due and when they've been missed. And
yeah,
stuff like
so
that.
I would be willing to bet if you clicked in on this,
Yeah, it would take
it would
you to-
attach it to one of those graph.
But it also
Points.
tells you on the graph, it tells you what it is.
Yes.
Yes, this.
So if you look right at the top above that green bar,
This is
that's
the
the
goal.
learning goal that's been assessed.
Right, so this is whatever this kiddo's working on right now, and this is how many times.
But then you said you can click on those and see what it.
You can click right on them and it will tell you, and you can also come down here, right? So you'll have the ability to scroll and it will also say it down here. So the same thing that's in this graph form shows up in like list form underneath it. Next. Good questions. This is
Yeah,
the
this is
most,
wonderful.
this is the best group ever. So this is your report card. So, we've had some parents get packets and go, why am I getting a packet? Well, you're getting a packet because it breaks down. It's no longer history A, right? So you can see that for this student, they are in social studies and this is their grade, but these are the skills that they've been working on, and this is how they're doing on each of the skills. So now when you see your student, if you're seeing 2s or 1s, you can be like, well, it looks like we have to do some work around maps because there's something going on maps. Let me email your teacher and figure out like what are we missing here, right? Does that make sense? Has everyone seen the report cards and or do you have questions about the report cards? Okay, they're pretty self-sufficient. Okay, good.
Did you have a question?
No, there's a lot of ones. Well, so then there's some that say like not, I don't remember what it means.
Not enough evidence.
Any, yes.
But we were told from some teachers, it's like, oh, we didn't have anything to grade, but then the actual number, like the total grade, is being like pulled down by that. So if you didn't have something to grade, but my child's being negatively impacted by
Right.
that, like.
Yeah, not enough evidence is child didn't
Didn't do the
submit
thing.
something, and so the teacher said, I don't have enough evidence to assess this. I would encourage, if you've already reached out to those teachers, reach out to us and we can follow up and support that, because that not enough evidence literally means I've graded everybody's and this one is
And they
missing.
didn't do it.
So I don't have anything to put in it for this learner, and it's essentially a zero. I don't have anything to grade right now.
Yeah.
And that's a great reason to reach out to a school counselor who can kind of look into that a little bit more, find out more information from the teacher, from the learner, and then share that back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because if it's a skill that you're not like really working on, right?
You just
They're
don't
not
assess
ready to be assessed yet. It shouldn't be in the grade book is my thought, right?
Yeah.
So when I see NEE, or at least when we've used NEE, it means like we did a paper and you didn't finish it, didn't do it, didn't start it, didn't.
There's actually, on the teacher side, there's several options that a teacher can do to wipe that assessment so it doesn't appear for that learner, or puts a code in that says excused or turning in at a later date. NE is a very intentional, I don't
Yeah.
have it and I'm not expecting it right now, and it's a zero type of a thing.
So definitely reach out to
we-
someone if that
We'll follow up
happens.
after and see what we
Mhm.
can do.
I have a question about assessments and things like that.
Yeah.
So, do the students always get them handed back to them if they're paper
If they're paper.
in every class? Like, so can they access them so they can see what they did well on or what they didn't do well on?
Man, gosh, I hope so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
So
is
if
the
someone's not getting
expectation.
handed back, yes, because otherwise, how do you know? Oh, I bombed, right? Like.
Besides, like, waiting for it to get
Mhm.
put in, that's what I'm like, and then obviously digitally, like, do they, after it's put in on Otis, I'm assuming they can go and see that easier than waiting for a paper one to be handed back with the grade on it.
In fact,
Okay.
a lot of times this is easier because I can grade them right in the moment, right? So
Right.
like, if a kid is working on a draft and comes up to me and says, "Hey, Ms. Oshak, can you take a look at this?" And I'm like, "That's a 3. I'll grade it right there," right? So like, there's not a mystery. And like for the paper stuff, like yeah, they should. I can't see a reason for someone to hold on to something, right? If the goal is growth and we're saying we want you to learn, we want you to know what you did wrong. Yes.
Yeah, that is our expectation. With Otis, what you will notice is once a learner has submitted their assessment, the system locks them out from going back in and changing it. But once the teacher has graded and returned that assessment,
Then they can see it.
exactly, all the feedback's there from the teacher. If there's if it's a sort of typed thing, they can revise, resubmit.
Okay.
But as soon as they submit it, mostly to prevent them from making
Yeah.
changes while it's being graded, it is locked out. So there's always a window of time where they're
Yeah,
like, I
okay.
can't see this, and that's because they've turned it in.
It's just like when looking at stuff, it's like, well, some stuff's on paper, some
Right.
stuff's digital, and it's like, well, trying to
Yeah.
navigate that piece
Yeah.
of it.
And we can add assessments that are on paper into Otis, right? So you could still see them, right? It would just be like maybe like a science quiz, right? I gave that on paper, but I entered
Yes.
in Otis.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. That's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions before I Yep.
So this is something that's for this year.
There is one.
It's not new, but it's as we continue this journey of getting all of our learners to a baseline of knowledge and skill, we have pared down over the last several years and removed learning goals from our courses that are not essential to the learning. So one as a score means there's no independence and the learner really hasn't shown us yet that they are able to do any of that work kind of on their own. So that's like saying they really don't understand this at all yet. Because we only are teaching and assessing critical skills and knowledge at this point, 8 to 10 learning goals is the standard for most courses, we can't have learners progressing to the next course, for example in algebra, if there's a critical piece of algebraic skill or thinking they haven't gotten yet. And that's true for all of our disciplines. So as we've made the kind of final leap away from the 0 to 100 system and averages, we're being very clear this year that we expect a level 2 on every assessed learning goal in a course in order for a learner to pass that course and receive course credit. That means if you see a 1 at the end of a course, we've got work to do and that learner has not passed that course. We do not shut the door and say, now you retake the whole course. We will provide opportunities throughout the course for learners to go back and fix things. That's part of why mentoring is extended. We're looking at some half-day kind of afternoon options where the mornings are classes, the afternoons are times to go and meet with teachers and work on projects and assessments, or if you're all caught up, do some fun enrichment types of activities. Our teachers are going to extend their availability after school, and we will always offer a summer program for learners to come back and fix hopefully one or two skills that they didn't quite get to a level 2. But we are insisting, and it's in our policies for this current school year onward, that a level 2 is required to pass a course and move on.
So it's not last year it was like you had an average of a 2, right? You passed a course. This year it's like each learning goal you have to achieve a 2 in each goal. Because kids would numbers game it. They would go, oh, I've got like 3s here, 2s here. I don't have to do that thing, right? And so they weren't showing us proficiency, and it was like, well, you're going to move on to this course, and this is actually a really important thing. So that's the reasoning behind it. But that is new. So you might hear some chatter from your kiddos about that.
The bottom line is that we know our learners are
They can
capable
do
of
it.
achieving at a level 2. It's our job to keep parents in the loop when that's not happening and provide support. And in the vein of support, some options that we have in place for everybody. That support period during the day that can take place during the mentoring period. School counseling, we can provide tutoring to learners. School counselors can set that up. That tutoring could be with our own teachers. After school, we can provide options there. We also still have our partnership with tutor.com for on-demand tutoring. We can look at other resources through school counseling as well. And of course, after school time is a great way for learners who have, of course, the ability to be transported to get extra help. That can take place in the library. We have teachers rotating through there and available every day to provide support. It could be going to that learner's own teachers. There can be appointments set up through parents for other opportunities after school with teachers. So every learner has these 3 things all the time anyways. And again, we're adding some additional layers of support this school year to help our learners get to that level 2.
Can I add, David mentioned tutor.com. Do you all know about that? Because some of our students either A, forgot, or B, just didn't tell their parentals. Do you know that the kids have free access to a tutor 24/7 for any subject? Free, right? So if they're, and at any time of day, so if we know we have teenagers that sit down and do their work at 11 o'clock at night, and if they're doing geometry or they're doing, biology, and they're like, I'm stuck, they can connect with a tutor. And the tutor can either do like a lesson with them, they can submit papers to the tutor, and the tutor will actually give them feedback. My AP students did it this spring. I had them write drafts, and the tutor scored them on a rubric, so said, what is your teacher looking for? And each kid got feedback about like, oh, your sources aren't cited correctly, or you really don't have great commentary here, right? So they can do that, like absent of me. Right? So there are and a lot of kids were hesitant to take advantage of it. So if you know that, it's something good that you can push your kids to. They can schedule meetings with tutors. They can bookmark them if they like them, but it's free to you. It's something that we've partnered with the state. Yes?
Yep, and I sent a zillion communications last fall through email. I'm going to do the same thing this year. So that's another, keep an eye on your email. We're going to keep reminding learners, and we'll keep on sharing that with you because Emery's exactly right. That's a great resource. It would typically cost a family $1,800 to have a 6-month window of access, and because of our partnership with the State Department of Ed, we get it for free for all of our kids. And it's career stuff, it's classes, AP, anything you can think of, they typically have tutors available. So that's great.
Too?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I like that you had them do it in class, because I'm not sure that they would do that on their own sometimes.
Oh, so that's a good segue into what I wanted
Yep.
to say about it. I want to put a little plug in for our learners, because this is a lot for us too, right? We're throwing all this information at you. It's new, kind of digging into like, what are my strengths? What are areas that I need to focus on? What are the resources? So I think sometimes maybe it was underutilized, or maybe we need to do more to support learners and how to look at that and use that information and then figure out what resources they need. And I think that's a big piece of school counseling as you transition into the high school from middle school. And I don't know if I'm actually next or not.
I think
We can.
Do you want me
So just some quick takeaways.
Then I'll come back to it.
So quick takeaways. We raise the bar in high school, and we're raising the bar for ourselves as a school, and we're raising it for your children because we know they can do the work. And the best thing that we can do for our communities and for our kids is to push them and make sure that they know that we want them to succeed, but we expect them to do work to do that at the same time. So we do have high expectations in the high school, and they're going to feel a little higher this year, and we're going to keep providing support to help them get there. Our job is to help our learners become independent citizens. Hopefully in Jaffrey and Ringe, we want them here. We want them helping to build our communities and maintain the wonderful parts of what we do here, and independence over time is critical to that. So we will over time insist that they do more and more of the work for their own learning, with us always there to support and guide them. Work habits, can't say it enough, they are just as important as academics, and in many cases, more important than academics, because the skills that come with that are never going to leave our learners' brains and lives. I don't always use this particular algebraic knowledge that I learned in high school, but I always use the hard work and problem solving that came with that. We want our kids to have those skills to succeed. And lastly, you'll hear us saying this over and over again, we want to be here to help and support, and we're going to offer as much as we can to make that happen. Now it's you.
Now it's me, so I'll go back. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our comprehensive team, and there are, this is our whole team, and I think it's important to say team because although your learner is a member of the high school, is assigned to a school counselor based on their last name, we really do work as a collaborative team. So if a learner comes in and they need help and support and say they're assigned to Mr. Robertson and he's not available, whoever is available can step in and provide that support. So if they're coming in and they're struggling with academics and they need something, we're not going to say you have to come back in 2 days when your school counselor is available. We'll jump in and provide that support. That being said, you are assigned to a school counselor officially through in grades 8 through 12.
My bad, I had a typo, I left off the through 12. Those should say 8
That's okay.
through 12.
Yeah, 8 through 12.
That is my fault.
So you get to work with the same school counselor for 5 years. And so our really goal is to get to know your learners, get to know you, for you to get to know us, so that we can work together to help your learner find success. Not only academically, we spent tonight talking a lot about what academics look like, but we want to help them kind of figure out what their path is for after graduation, kind of find things in our school community and larger community that they're connected to, that they like to do. We find that learners that are connected outside of the classroom are much more successful in the classroom, and Mrs. Summy Leonard will talk a little bit about that, I think after I finish presenting. But basically, this is our team. Reach out. Mr. Dustin had mentioned this, you're not sure who to talk to, who you should ask the question, or maybe you're trying to get in touch with a teacher and they're teaching all day long and you're concerned about something. You can always reach out to the school counselor. The best way is to, if you need immediate attention, is to call our registrar, Heather Dema, because she knows what's going on in the office and she can find us or get a message to us quickly. Email is another way to send us a message and say you need some help. I say that because if we're with another learner or we're in the classroom, we're not going to pick up our phone, we're not going to be immediately available. So email is a great way to communicate. I think the biggest change in how we provide supports from middle school to high school is how we're interacting with your learners. In middle school, it's a lot of pushing into the classroom, doing a lot more of universal. Every learner's getting exposure to programming. We're working collaboratively with the teams to figure out what our learners need, doing some individual, some small group. That really begins to shift in 8th grade and definitely is a total shift in 9th grade, where there tends to be a lot more one-on-one or small group. We're still in the classroom for bigger things like talking about the program studies and course selections and some of those bigger things that are happening, but really in figuring out how to best support our learners. That's done mostly in our office area or larger office area or individual school counselor area. So that kind of changes, but reach out. We're here to help. If we don't have the answer, we traditionally know where you can get the answer, or we'll do the research and the work to figure out the answer for you. So this is our team. So I think I'll talk just a little bit more about the academics. It is a lot for our learners, right? There's a big transition. They're taking different courses. They have more teachers, more classes with block scheduling. Things look a little different. So in the fall, we will do some check-ins. We'll be in the freshman foundations class, getting to know the learners, but also I think doing some one-on-one meetings or small groups so learners know who we are, how to access, how we can support. We really want them to know how to use Otis, to be looking at that, not necessarily every night. There's that balance between too much and what's enough, and how can we make sure they're getting the support. I always say if things are going well, then you probably need to check in less, every week, every other week. If things aren't going well, that might be twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, or whatever you want, checking in to see how your learner's doing. But we want learners to be able to engage in that conversation too. I love the fact that I hear that you're logging in with your learner and looking at it, as much as maybe because we don't know how to use it as well as they do, but also to be able to engage in that conversation. So we'll pay attention to that. We'll be watching how learners are doing. We'll be meeting with learners who are struggling if we see it. But oftentimes learners know well before we know, well before there's any grades in Otis, that they're struggling. So we want to encourage them to have those conversations with us. If you're hearing that at home, reach out. And say, hey, can you meet with my learner? They just needed, some support or someone to have a conversation. I'm not really sure how I can help them, and we certainly will do that. In high school, throughout all 4 years of high school, we see a lot of changes in peer groups. There can be conflict, struggles, things that happen in relationships that make it difficult, that impact learning. We're here to support that. Social skill building, that falls in line with that. How do I find my new peer group? How do I fit in? What are my interests? What do I like to do? And what does that mean for the larger school community and my role in that? We're here to support you. So sometimes people will call and say, I have this kind of question, I'm not sure who to ask, or maybe I should know the answer. Please just reach out to us. Don't be shy, don't be afraid. We want to support you. The more we can work together, the more success your learners will have while they're here at the high school. We can help you make connections to teacher teams. We meet with teacher teams once a week. We go to their meetings. We hear what's going on for learners and in school. And when I say that, they're talking about struggles that all kids are struggling with, a particular math area, or maybe socially their mentoring group is struggling to get work together. They don't seem to be collaborative. How can we help? So we have those conversations with teacher teams. We also can bring teams together for you. So if we're hearing or you're feeling like your learner is having a struggle in multiple classes, it's important to bring the whole team together. And when I say that, not just the areas where a learner's having struggles, if they have one teacher where they're doing really well, it's important to invite that teacher in. What's different about that class? How can we take the success that the learner's having in that class and bring it into other classes? So we can help collaborate and communicate that and bring everybody together. High school is a big time for us to, encourage kids to be curious, try new things, figure out what they like, what they don't like, where their strengths are, the things that challenge them, and then help that frame kind of what life after graduation is going to look like for them. What are they most interested in? What do they want to do? What does that mean for future career planning? Is that continuing your education after? Is it the military? Is it going into the workforce? Is it a gap year? All of those options we want to engage with all of our learners, but we want every learner who graduates to have some type of plan and to have the tools and the resources they need to be successful, whatever their pathway may be. And then, of course, we love to be in the classroom, so we do some of that whenever possible. We used to be in Mrs. Oshiak's class. I'd be like, can we come into your classroom and do whatever it is, talk about testing, talk about program of studies. It's a nice opportunity for us to see all of our learners and to do some of that universal programming. We send out a lot of emails, a lot of email blasts, especially in junior and senior year. You see a lot of communications from us, just trying to make sure that you have the information that we're also sharing with our learners. Because we know that when they come home, they don't always share that. And not because they don't want you to be involved, but it's a lot for them too to manage, right? They're managing a lot of moving pieces. So bottom line is, reach out. We're here to help support. We want your learners to be successful. We want you to know what's happening in the schools, and we'll do what we can to make sure that that happens. That was a lot, sorry. That's okay.
You did awesome. So there are tons of opportunities here, and many of you probably already know that there are after-school activities, there are clubs, there are athletics. Our kids have a whole bunch of things they do. As they get older, they might start to get into going into the workforce. We have kids that I think are very busy, not only with their academics, but outside, whether they're taking care of younger kids or working. I mean, the majority of our kids, I think, at some point are working before they hit their junior year. So the nice thing about after school clubs and activities, those are free opportunities. At the high school level, there are lots of opportunities for, they could be doing drama, they could be doing things with the baking club, they could be doing, there's a whole list. If there's something that they really want to do, then they can help create that. And Heather Lindstad is the director of activities and athletics here, and she will find out what the kids want if they want to present something, and if we have the ability, we'll try to find an adult that will do that. So it's really, she does an amazing job of trying to make sure that kids have those opportunities. As we know in school, the more opportunities you have, you learn about yourself. You might do something and you go, yeah, that wasn't really for me. Athletics at the high school level, there are requirements to make sure that you have, you're eligible for athletics through the NCAA, and also our requirements that you are passing courses. The athletics that we do offer here, there's a new one that, if you notice in the bottom, is flag football, and that's because our kids, it was a huge, very popular after-school activity that was a club. So in order to participate in athletics, they started this week actually for the high school. Middle school will start on the first day of school, so there's plenty of times to be involved. And if you're interested, then you would go on to our athletic website and open up an account that's a family ID, and that's for activities and athletics. And that way it helps keep the information, so if a coach is looking for, if they had to reach out to a parent if they're emergency contact, that's how we keep track of things. So there's lots of things to do. This is a short list of things, and it can vary, because sometimes maybe kids don't necessarily want to be doing Mad Scientist this year, but we have 1,000 kids that want to do Dungeons and Dragons, which they always have. So
Miss Lindstad just made a new group because some of the athletes went to her and said, Miss Lindstad, we would like to do like a sports marketing type of thing. And so she's like, okay, great. So now there's a sports marketing group, and so it's student driven. So I can't emphasize enough that if your teenager has an idea, they should come to any of us, and like our goal really is to try and make it happen. Like we usually can find a body and find a way to make it happen. So yeah, that's it. That's the last. There's no more buttons to push. You were so good at asking questions before. Do you have any questions now? You're seasoned pros right now.
It's a lot of
You're
information.
overwhelmed. Rachel.
So I was a little bit delinquent. I have a question about my son's schedule, and I did email Tim just yesterday.
So we can talk about that after, if that's okay?
Well, I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
it got a thing saying that he's not in the building. Will he get that eventually?
Yeah.
Our school counselors get a basket of summer days that they spread out throughout the summer. So typically, if they don't get back right away, either they'll forward it to Kim and say, can you please follow up, or they'll get in touch at one of their summer days. But anytime that does happen, Heather Dema, who's the registrar, is the great next step. That's a great question, because if it says, oh, I'm going to be out of the office for 3 weeks, and you're like, but I can't wait 3 weeks, I need to know before school, yeah, she's a great person to then get that information out as well. It's a great question.
Yeah, so we can chat, because I won't be able to help you.
I don't think so.
What do you want to know? You're very excited. Go back to school.
Trying to think if there's any other questions that people typically ask getting close to the school year.
There's still PUP for
Yep.
enough attendance.
Still pick up patrol,
Okay,
yep,
so
still
that's
hall
the
pass
same.
system. We do have a new lunch vendor this year, a new lunch company, which we're very
So nice.
excited for. I just met with them today. They talked about homemade meals as the consistent norm, farm to table. They've got new salad bars they just brought in for lots of fresh salad options. So that's going to be good, but it's the same process for payments and all that, even with the new company. Picture Day is the second day of school this year, so that's fun. Hopefully our building is all back together in time for that.
Can I bring up something that I just don't feel like kids know enough about?
Yeah.
And that is the CTE classes, because that's something I didn't mention. And I know I didn't know much about it, and so with my first son, I don't think I promoted to him the opportunities he could have had, or as much as I have with my second son.
So I will just say our school counseling team the last 2 years has done a much better job. That's the first thing they kind of talk about in scheduling presentations, career classes, tech ed, how can we get you in there? So I appreciate that feedback, because we didn't always do a great job with that. We offer 30 some odd programs through our direct partnership here. Messinic and Conval are kind of all one region. So those range from building and construction trades, which is in our building here. That includes electrical, plumbing, carpentry, masonry, and general kind of construction work. Conval has programs in engineering, manufacturing, early childhood education, computer technology, software engineering and design, business marketing, graphic design. I mean, there's just a long list, law and public safety. So those are all, we advertise those in our program of studies. We will definitely support sending any learner there. We can also send learners to Keene's Career Center. They have a cosmetology and culinary arts program. If there's spaces, they'll let our learners tuition in at the school's expense for those kind of opportunities. Messinic has a wonderful automotive program that we send learners to. I think they just added diesel either this year or last year. So realistically, if there's any type of thing that your child says to you that they haven't told us, I really wish my school offered this, we can almost always find a way to get this for them. Sometimes that's even just regular classes like an AP chemistry physics kind of blended piece that a learner wanted to do. We don't offer that here. We found a school that did and we sent them there to do that class. So our job and our goal is to provide whatever we can to learners. We'll find a resource. Our counseling team is wonderful at that, and we will get them there. So thank you for saying that. You're exactly right, a critical area. Every learner should at least take one of those courses and try them out, in my opinion, but that's always a
And we did take the middle school learners this year over
Yep.
for a field trip so they could get that exposure in freshman foundations. So we all agree, it's just amazing.
When
I
would
think
those be available? Like junior year usually?
They start actually
Sophomore
sophomore
year.
year.
Okay.
Yep. The more robust programs that have like some safety elements, some of those might start junior year, but almost all of them I think are sophomore year at this point.
Yeah.
And during we had a career day, and we actually had some students that were in some of them talking to the other kids, like some of the kids who are in the child care program or the business marketing program. We're selling it to other students, showing them what they had done, and the teachers came over. So they generally enjoy them. They're the programs that kids really enjoy to do.
And they usually have Conval has like an open house for their CTE program. That's usually sometime in the spring, in the evening. Where
And I want to really emphasize, CTE means career technical education. That is for anybody. Some people get confused because a couple decades ago there was a movement towards like technical education and kind of, we're going to shunt kids over there who shouldn't be in regular school. This is not that. This is, I'm interested in this career field, software design and engineering, and I'm going to get an early head start. All of these programs are required to offer at least one industry recognized credential at the end of if a learner completes all the courses. So that means they actually walk out with something that the industry says, this is good to get you in the field when you leave high school. So it is very valuable stuff.
And some offer college credit too, so at no cost.
Yep. And just as an FYI, we're building our own, starting this year, in-district infant and toddler program to support staff, children coming in, because that's a big need, and we don't want to lose teachers because they can't find childcare. Plus, we have a huge amount of learner interest in that field in our building. So that's going to be another avenue where learners can go and take the course at Conval, but do their field placements here. We can do extended learning opportunities with that. It's going to be really, really fun.
And they do multiple CTE courses?
Yes.
Yep.
Because Gary's kind of going,
Yep.
Absolutely.
mechanical engineering. He's
Absolutely. Send them to both and let them figure out which one
Yeah,
he likes.
especially if they want to like step into it sophomore year and try one or both and then figure out like what that career path is. But
Yep.
yeah, absolutely.
If you're curious as to what they are or where they are, they're all in our program of studies.
Yep.
So there's just a whole list of them.
I was just thinking, like, when, spring came around to pick classes, I feel like it was just like the regular core classes, and, I don't realize that my student
is
would think to even look in those
Is
other
it
ones.
too late for this year if they're interested?
If they're a sophomore,
Yeah.
probably just because we have limited seats available, but maybe not, it depends on
It
the
doesn't
program.
hurt to ask, honestly.
Yeah, so you could reach out. I always reach out because kids change or move, so sometimes there are seats that would be open, so you could reach out to me if you have a learner who's going to be a sophomore, junior, or even senior. Like some seniors can take those first year classes too if there's room. We try not to turn any learners away from that. It's a lot. I think choosing classes is a lot. We're in the classrooms helping learners. And they were able to do it online so that the courses came up and they could choose, but I think it can just be overwhelming, so.
And we always do, the program of studies is always completed before March, and we send it out, but it's one of those, it looks like it's gonna be an incredibly difficult, long thing to get through because it's like 100 pages, but most of that is because there's all these courses listed with descriptions. So that's a great place to just click through. You can read all the policies and procedures, that's good to know, but the exciting stuff is at the end.
I learned this, I don't know how I missed it before because I was watching kids do it. It's like that it's got a menu thing on the side so you can just click on
Correct.
Yeah,
section.
you can click
So,
on
oh, this
CTE
is
and it
great.
takes you right to
Yeah,
the
it
CTE.
jumps you
Yeah.
right down to the
Yes.
CTE classes, yep. Yep.
I would say, like, when you get that program of studies, like in 8th or 9th grade, you should go through it and highlight everything or circle everything that you think you might be interested in taking, and then kind of figuring that out and how that fits in, and working with your school counselor to balance that out. How, you know, when do you want to try that? And that's why those courses, trying those sophomore year, can help, you know, really frame what the rest of your high school experience looks like. Because if we don't have it and we can't find it, we can create it through those extended learning opportunities, which is really exciting.
Any other questions? Thank you for coming tonight. We really appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Have a great rest of the summer.
Thank you.
See you on August 30th.